This week I'm playing a little bit of catch up with Tolkien. Not Tolkien, but Tolkien, because apparently we've all been saying it wrong for years. It is the biopic of, I'm just gonna revert to saying it the wrong way because that is just how I say it. J.R.R. Tolkien, who of course wrote Lord of the Rings, and he is being played by Nicholas Hoult in this, who I think is a very good actor. I don't know if J.R.R. Tolkien, this is going to annoy me for the rest of this review, but I don't know if he is being portrayed as the most dynamic character on screen. I don't know if he was the right person to make a biopic about. I think he definitely lived an interesting life. There's no arguing that he was a genius and, of course, had such an impact on the literary world and, pop culture, essentially. He served in the First World War, which is, an interesting story, but it doesn't really focus on that. It's mostly about, growing up and his time at school and falling in love with someone, and his romantic interest is played by Lily Collins and, showing us how much of a genius he is at linguistics, and that's how that led to the Lord of the Rings. And my thing is, this is going to be a very weird analogy and a very specific one. And if you were a super Lord of the Rings nerd, this will make sense to you. And if you are not, you were probably tuning out already. And also, you probably weren't the target audience for this movie. So when the Lord of the Rings movies came out, there were licensed video games from the movie versions, which were, they were like, okay, it was Orlando Bloom and Viggo Mortensen and Ian McKellen, and those were the images. And then there were the licensed video games from the written materials. And the ones from the movie were shinier and better. And it's not to say that the ones from the book materials weren't as good, but they were lacking a certain level of polish and entertainment value that I think this movie is suffering from. And again, that was a very specific analogy, so if I lost you, I'm sorry. Nicholas Hoult is charming in it. It's very clear that the director was a fan of Tolkien, but it just feels like there are a bunch of missed opportunities. And I don't know if it's fan service or selling out to reference Lord of the Rings more, but I just don't feel like we necessarily got to the place where I'm like, yeah, clearly this is the dude who ended up writing this thing that had such an impact on so many people's lives. They just, it ties up at the very end. And the in-between is just kind of scholarly and not the most interesting thing in the world. There's certainly friendship dynamics that you're like, oh, okay, are we going to reference the Fellowship of the Ring? Are you guys a fellowship? Is this where this is going? What's, no, we're not going to make that connection, or you're going to make it a very, very loose connection and expect us as the audience to really kind of stretch this one. This is not particularly compelling. I would have almost preferred to read it as a biography or something like that. Visually, it's a very pretty film. It's clearly a love letter to languages, but that doesn't make it a great cinematic experience. So I just feel like there's a disconnect and something's missing, which is such a shame because I do think it had the potential. So I'm only going to give this 2.5 out of 5. Maybe if you're going to see it, this is probably wait till it comes out on some sort of streaming service one. But unfortunately, I wish it was better. It had potential. And I actually had the opportunity to hear the director speak, and I was like, yeah, this dude clearly loves this material, but maybe that also got in his way. So 2.5 out of 5.